This podcast is made possible by funding from True Patriot Love Foundation.
We're not this cold call center where you get a robotic voice and you never get to talk to a live person. You always get to talk to a live person when you phone us. And even if it's you leave a message, we'll always call you back. We have very clear service standards which actually make sure that we do call you back. That live voice is really important where somebody has a complaint, because most people, when they have a complaint, they want to be heard, first of all. Talking to a robot maybe isn't the right way to go.
The military lifestyle is all-encompassing.
It's difficult but rewarding.
Dynamic. Very, very dynamic.
Unpredictable.
You are in the Canadian Armed Forces or a family member connected to the military. You know the lifestyle can be a challenge.
The military lifestyle is always changing.
In this podcast, we explore the world of deployments, postings, and transitions. This is the military lifestyle. Here's your host, John Shaboon.
The military is a complex system. There are a lot of policies that govern the way it operates, and that system can be complex for even the most experienced military member. If you ever feel like the system's failed you, you got a complaint, think you've been treated unfairly, there's a formal way to move forward. I chat with the Canadian Armed Forces Ombudsman next. Today, we're talking with the Canadian Armed Forces Ombudsman, Greg Lick. Welcome, Greg. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks very much for having me.
And if people are wondering, I'm based here in Esquimalt. I did not fly out to Ottawa to meet Greg and have a chat with him. We're connecting via the internet today, so thank you for doing that. And so, Greg, the role of the Ombudsman, can you give us kind of a breakdown of what the role of the Canadian Armed Forces Ombudsman is?
Absolutely. It's normally I sort of part it out into three parts. One is to provide sort of a service of education, referral for our constituents so that they can avoid problems. And so I kind of put it in the sense of where the problem lies, that with 604 policies that govern how military personnel are governed. That's incredibly complex for anyone to understand within the department, and certainly for new recruits, for even a very experienced military personnel, but also families, for them to understand all the benefits, all the services that are available to them as a military family. Very, very complex. And what we try to do is try to demystify, try to put it in a language so that everyone is able to understand and access those services and benefits that they deserve. So that's the education part of our services, so that we avoid problems. But we're also, most importantly, for families. We are the only formal recourse mechanism for complaints of military families. And that's very important because there's really no other organization in the department that actually deals with complaints from families. Certainly the military family resource centers provide direct services to military families, but we have the ability to help them with their various complaints. And that's an important part of our service. We also provide, obviously, that service for all of our constituents as well, but in this particular sense, military families, we're the only one. And then the other sort of third part of our mandate is really to look at various systemic issues that affect our constituents, including military families, military members, veterans, that are systemic problems that need a deeper investigation so that we can promote and recommend long-term positive change for our members. That's kind of the three parts of our services that the Ombudsman Office actually deals with.
What are a few examples of how people have accessed the Ombudsman?
we have a variety of ways, and we try to make it as easy as possible for military families, for members to access our services. So years ago, we started off having locations, offices across the country. We went away from that given advances in technology, and so now we have all sorts of means. We have a 1-800 number that allows people to call us for information, call us to make a complaint. The website that we operate is very, very extensive in terms of the information available on it that members and families can look at it. And the important part of that is that, like many other organizations, we've actually put it now, ours is on the internet, so that families and members can look at it at home rather than on the department's intranet, which is only available if you have a particular military or departmental computer. So that's important for military families because they can now access that information at home with their spouse, with their partner, whoever it might be. That's the website. On the website, we have all sorts of different we call them educational products. Did you know that this benefit could be available to you? Did you know that this service could be available to you? Did you know that if you're in this particular situation, what kinds of benefits could be available to you? That's really important so that people can decipher and understand all the various benefits, services, and programs that are available to them. So you can call us, we have a live chat ability so that you can live chat with us over the web. And we also have the ability, I think most importantly for families, to make an appointment, to schedule an appointment with us. So at your convenience, that allows them to meet with their spouse, meet with their partner, and us, and call us at a convenient time that's available to families, not just convenient for us, as an example. And I think that's vitally important.
Do you find that there's a certain way that people will submit their, call it complaint or issue? Is it online, by phone, or printed out the form, mail it in? What do you find is the most popular way?
Certainly the most popular way is by phone. People like the idea. I think it's just natural human interest that they like the idea of talking to a live person. One of the things that separates us from many other call centers, we'll call them, is that we're not this cold call center where you get a robotic voice and you never get to talk to a live person. You always get to talk to a live person when you phone us. And even if it's you leave a message, we'll always call you back. We have very clear service standards which actually make sure that we do call you back. And that live voice is really important where somebody has a complaint, because most people, when they have a complaint, they want to be heard. First of all, talking to a robot maybe isn't the right way to go. So by phone is really the most common one. But the other means of getting in contact with us allow people to choose. And that's important nowadays in this all sorts of different ways of communicating. Everybody has a different way, but phone is definitely the most common.
And in terms of like the accessibility of your phone line, what is is it office hours kind of, you can speak to someone?
So we have extended office hours. So we're not 24/7, such as the sexual misconduct call center, because that's an emergency call center. For us, we have extended office hours that allow, particularly people from the West Coast, allow them to choose a more convenient time to families and members to allow that side of the country to contact us. And then we have earlier hours for the East Coast. So this makes it easier for people to contact us, but we're not 24/7, but that we're trying to make it as convenient as possible. And then if there's not a convenient time sort of during those extended hours, make a booking with us to schedule a convenient time to you.
Okay, so if I make the phone call, walk us through the process. What takes place after that initial phone call, initial contact, or what it might be?
During the initial contact, the biggest part of our role is to take the information from you. What are you asking? Is it just a piece of information that can be easily accessed? Is it a referral to a particular mechanism of the department to deal with a complaint? Is it an actual complaint that we might be able to do a more in-depth investigation about? So the biggest part of that first contact is to get the information from you, understand from our point of view what we can do to help you. And so that, again, it might, as I said, it might be a piece of information, might be a reference to our website to say, if you look on our website for this particular situation, you'll see that there are a range of various ways that you can deal with that particular problem or get the information. So a lot of it's getting the information. One of the biggest and most important principles of our office is confidentiality. So every call, every piece of information that you provide us is absolutely confidential. It is not shared with anyone unless we have your written permission to do so. And that's important in a military environment where some people might have a fear of reprisal, and certainly with the military members where they don't have representation by a union. One of our roles is to ensure that confidentiality, ensure that people are confident when they call us that we're not going to share the information with someone who may not use it inappropriately. If we need to use your information to help you resolve the problem, we will ask you for a form that allows you to fill it out and provide us written permission to use that information. Because sometimes that's the only way to deal with a particular problem, say around benefits and things like that. So we collect the information. We'll then assess how we're best able to help you, either by referral, providing information, or possibly moving it along to a more deeper investigation, depending on what the particular situation is.
When I think of the ombudsman, I think of people will contact the ombudsman when they feel like they've been treated unfairly, when there's a little bit of a system failure or something. The system is, they're basically hit a point where they feel like this is not right. Is that accurate, would you say?
It's actually very accurate in terms of what our mandate is. So there are many people who will call us or may call us and think that they deserve a certain benefit at a certain amount. But our role, and the role of pretty well every ombudsman in the world, is to ensure fairness in a process, to ensure that the person is treated fairly by the system. And so in our case, we're not a defense attorney. We're not an advocate in the true sense of the word that will defend you no matter what. So when we receive a complaint, we always take down the information. We always look at both sides of the story, or many sides of the story, and there always are other sides of the story. And that's to ensure that when we look at the particular situation, look at the problem, that what we're looking at is from the lens of fairness. Has the person been treated fairly within the particular process that they're dealing with? We do get people that will call us when it's not really truly an issue about fairness. And so we spend a little bit of time usually with the person to explain what our mandate is, what we can do, what we can't do. And so, for example, one of the areas that we are not allowed to investigate is areas of criminal activity. That is dealt with by military police, civilian police, whatever the particular situation is. And so that's an area that we're not allowed to intervene in.
What type of issues do you see on a daily basis? Can you give me kind of some examples of what kind of categories people are, if people are kind of wondering what you deal with?
Absolutely. So with respect to military families and military members, the most common category of complaint or issue that we deal with is pay and benefits, as you would expect, I think. And so that makes up our major category, but we also deal with postings and relocation. We deal with health services complaints. We'll deal with promotion. And those tend to be the majority of the complaints. We get a number of complaints that are outside of our mandate, and we have to ensure that people are then referred to the right area where they can resolve their problem. But as I said, the majority of them tend to be pay and benefits, and that includes benefits available to military families and members as well.
Now, what is your perspective on important family issues for military families? What have you seen?
Since last November of 2018, so I've had the opportunity to visit a number of bases right now: Cold Lake, Bagottville, Halifax, and Petawawa, and heading out to CFB Shiloh. So I've had the ability to sit down now personally with families, and usually what we do, we'll organize an evening for families to come in and talk with us, and talk with me personally in this case, about the services that we can provide, but also what are the issues that they're facing. And they're fairly common across the country and very consistent with many of the issues that we investigated and reported on back in 2013 in our report on the home front. So healthcare and family doctors available to military families in what are typically relatively isolated communities where military bases are. Availability of bilingual services, francophone services in the health area available to families in a primarily anglophone community, and vice versa for anglophones accessing health services in primarily francophone communities. This isn't an uncommon issue for all Canadians, except that military families experience more postings, more movements, more relocations than any other sort of category of Canadian. They experience more complex issues and more issues with healthcare than any other. Spousal employment. So as military families and their spouses and partners move across the country, they'll have to give up possibly employment with one company and have to find employment in another area if they can. But one of the stressors that they face is that with the more isolated bases, there just isn't the amount of employment that they would have in a more major community like Toronto or Montreal or so on. Access for special needs care. So as members and families move across the country, where they're trying to access specialized health services such as special needs care for children, sometimes they have to move from a spot on a waiting list that they've waited a long time for. Suddenly they're moving and go to the bottom of the list in another province. And that's a particular issue for military families, and one that's a big stressor for families with special needs children in particular. The other areas that we've seen are some of the benefits that are available to families and, in this case, military members and their families, including some assistance when they sell a home and have to sell it at a loss. They're forced to move from a place based on their deployment, based on their careers and so on. But sometimes as markets move up and down, they have no choice but to sell at a loss. And home equity assistance, that policy has changed over the years. And some communities, such as Cold Lake, that have experienced extreme fluctuations in home markets, in this case due to the oil patch, they've also then experienced very severe losses. And the policy isn't quite working for them right now to deal with those exceptional cases. Some of the benefits policies, like the post-living differential, have not been updated in the case of that one since 2008. And some of these policies sit with central agencies such as Treasury Board, and they do need more attention to be paid to them so that military members and their families don't face the unintended consequences of market fluctuations and so on. So those are some of the issues, John, that military families are facing. With regards to the MFRC, one of the ones I've heard most often is, given all the passionate people that work in the MFRCs across the country trying to help military families, I think the one struggle I've seen for all of them is trying the best they can to make families aware of their services. There's lots of services available, but sometimes families just aren't aware, and sometimes no matter how hard you try at making people aware, they don't always get the message. So that's one of the areas that I would like to help the MFRC, if we can, in communicating that.
Yeah, and sometimes when I talk to people, they're more receptive to hear something when they're in the moment, right? And
right.
Sometimes it's just not, when we do have a chance to speak to them, it might not be relevant in their life. They know about us, but they don't really know. So we do our best, but it's ongoing education, definitely.
Exactly.
Are there any emerging trends that you see when it comes to military families?
Other than the ones I've mentioned, which are ongoing, and more than anything, healthcare availability is not only for Canadians, but particularly for military families, is probably the biggest issue that I've understood for all spousal employment and so on. Infrastructure, so the housing, military housing availability on various bases. Definitely, we're encouraged to see some investment by the Housing Authority in those bases, but it's going to take a while, like any capital investment. They're trying, but it's going to take a while to get up to speed. It's a long-term investment to get all the infrastructure in each of the bases up to a up to a standard which Canadians expect. So that's a particular issue, but I'm encouraged to see some work in that area, but it'll be long term. Healthcare again is pretty well the major one. Not so much a trend, but certainly this Liberal government committed to the policy of strong, secure, and engaged, which Chapter 1 took a lot of the elements from even our report on the home front about military families and put a lot of initiatives forward there that speak to how they're going to support military families better going into the future, including a comprehensive military family plan. I've seen it. I've seen the proposed version of it. It's very, very encouraging, and I'm very hopeful that we'll see that move forward in the future with approval and with funding and so on. So that will go, I think, a long way towards helping families deal with their particular issues.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. That's all I have. Do you have anything else you'd like to add when it comes to military families and the Ombudsman?
There's a couple of things that I would like to promote. We're looking at in our systemic investigations right now. One of the ones that does affect military families a lot is OutCan, where military families and members are posted outside of Canada and then having to deal with even more of the complexities of relocation, different countries, and so on. We're doing that investigation now. It's bringing us lots of information. We will see that coming out probably next spring in terms of our report and recommendations. And so that will be very important for families to see. We're also always working on different educational products. And one of the ones I think that will be very, very valuable for military families is what we call the ABCs of postings. A being, what do you do? What do you need to look at before you're posted? What do you have to look at? Part B, during your posting, and what do you have to look at, after you've relocated in terms of putting in receipts and all the stuff that has to go on after you get to where you need to go. So that'll be coming out in early 2020 with a video, and it'll make sure that people get the information in a way that they can digest very easily. And I think the other one that I'd like to just offer is that as we go through our various systemic investigations over the next number of years, and the team have committed to develop a 5-year or actually 6-year plan that will help us look at various themes over the years. And the theme for next year will be families. And so we're going to continue the work that we started back in 2013 with the report there on the home front. And we'll start to look at the theme of families next year in a very deep manner to help families get the support and services that they need as they support the military members.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time, Greg.
Thanks, John. My pleasure.
You can reach the Office of the Ombudsman at 1-888-828-3626. Their website is ombuds.ca. That's ombuds.ca. They are also active on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. The Ombudsman does visit bases to meet with families from time to time, so keep an eye out for that.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Military Lifestyle. To learn more about this episode and to check out our other resources like the deployment app, go to esquimalt.mfrc.com. A special thanks to True Patriot Love Foundation for funding Season 1 of this podcast, and to Organized Sound Productions for bringing our idea to life. Please share this podcast with your military family or with someone living the lifestyle. Subscribe to The Military Lifestyle on your favorite podcast app. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you for listening.